High in the craggy peaks of the misty Ember Mountains, nestled within a scorched cave littered with golden goblets, jewel-studded crowns, and mysterious enchanted relics, lived a dragon named Grizzleflint. Grizzleflint was not your usual fire-breathing, night-frying, damsel-distressing beast. No, Grizzleflint had long since retired from all that. In fact, Grizzleflint had long since retired from just about everything. Each morning, the sun would rise gloriously over the horizon, spilling its golden light over the crags and cliffs. Birds would sing, deer would prance, and adventurers would gear up to do something heroic. But not Grizzleflint. The old dragon would shift slightly in his bed of treasure, muttering something about the light being too bright, before yanking a tattered velvet curtain across the cave entrance. Then he would snuggle deeper into his pile of gold, letting out a satisfied grunt as a golden bracelet settled perfectly under his left wing. Grizzleflint was, by all accounts, bone-shatteringly lazy. It had started innocently enough. One morning, centuries ago, he'd told himself he deserved a break. No more burning villages or hoarding new treasure. Just a little rest. A few decades later, he was still on that same break, having not moved more than 6 feet in any direction. The hoard itself had grown stagnant. Coins lay where they were dropped. Gems gathered dust. Even the magical relics, which once glowed with arcane energy, had dimmed as if bored into dormancy. Occasionally, a rat or a brave squirrel would sneak in and steal a shiny trinket or two, but Grizzleflint never noticed. Or rather, he noticed, but couldn't be bothered to care. Until one peculiar morning. It began like any other. Grizzleflint stirred lazily as the morning light spilled into the cave. He yawned, sending a puff of smoke spiraling up to the ceiling. His wing flopped over the nearest pile of coins, expecting the usual comforting jingle. Instead, there was a dull thud. Odd. He blinked one eye open. The pile seemed flatter. He shifted slightly, peering at another section of his hoard. More flatness. More missing glitter. Curious now, he stretched his neck and looked further. His hoard was full of holes. Gold, gems, even his favorite polished obsidian skull, gone. In their place were a few cracked nutshells and chewed pine cones. His treasure had been stolen. Replaced by forest junk. Panic flared. Well, mild panic. Enough to get him to stand up for the first time in 73 years. He lumbered toward the entrance of the cave, bones cracking like an old ship hull. There, on a rock not far from the ledge, sat a fat squirrel holding a gold coin like a sandwich. It was nibbling at it. Not effectively, of course, but very enthusiastically. Nearby, several other squirrels darted between trees, some dragging whole chains of treasure behind them. A few wore his rings like bracelets. One had a ruby balanced on its head like a crown. Grizzleflint's eye twitched. He didn't roar. That would have required effort. Instead, he plopped down on his haunches and sulked. The squirrels didn't seem to care. One even waved at him. With his emerald ring. He trudged back into the cave, defeated. But something gnawed at him, figuratively, not just the literal squirrel nibble marks. This hoard had taken him centuries to gather. He couldn't just let it go. For the first time in centuries, Grizzleflint resolved to take action. But first, he needed energy. He waddled over to a dusty shelf where old adventuring scrolls and cursed books lay. Among them, wedged between a beginner's guide to incineration and the necromancer's cookbook, was something unusual, a shiny crystal tablet, gifted by a techno-wizard decades ago. Grizzleflint had used it once to watch cat videos, then fell asleep for 20 years. But now, it powered on with a soft hum. He fumbled through the apps until he found something labeled Motivational, podcasts for the mythical mind. A chipper voice echoed through the cave. Good morning, magical beings. Today's affirmation: you are the fire in your belly, literally, if you're a dragon. Grizzleflint blinked. Stretch those wings, lift that tail, and conquer your goals. Oddly, it resonated. He extended a claw, tried a wing stretch. Several joints cracked. It felt, sort of good. The podcast continued, guiding him through basic yoga poses, downward griffin, sun salutation of the salamander, and winged warrior 3. Grizzleflint, despite the groaning of his aged body, followed along. Badly. He knocked over an urn. His tail accidentally smacked a stalagmite. But by the end, he was sweating molten drips and breathing heavily, and for once, not just from walking across the cave. That night, he didn't sleep. He plotted. The next morning, before the squirrels returned, Grizzleflint took to the skies for the first time in centuries. His wings complained bitterly, his muscles screamed, but the wind felt glorious. The mountain air filled his nostrils, washing away years of dust and squirrel musk. He spotted the glimmer of gold in the treetops below. The squirrels had built a village, a literal squirrel utopia made of stolen treasure. Hammocks of golden chains. Acorn-shaped huts carved from enchanted chalices. Slides made from his platinum shields. It was an impressive operation. Ingenious, really. But Grizzleflint had not done yoga and listened to 38 motivational episodes for nothing. He didn't attack. He'd lost the edge for carnage. Instead, he used something more powerful: passive-aggressive guilt. He landed at the edge of the squirrel village, slow and dramatic. He sighed. Loudly. He let out a pitiful cough. Then, with great effort, he laid down a crude sign made from bark and scratched gold leaf. Former home of Grizzleflint's memories. Return if moved. Or not. Whatever. I guess. Then he turned and slowly walked away. The squirrels stared. Some chattered. One dropped a tiny crown. That evening, back in his cave, Grizzleflint did his stretches, listened to his podcast, and sipped herbal lava, aka hot magma filtered through pine cones. Just as he was settling in, he heard a rustle. A single squirrel scurried into the cave and placed the obsidian skull beside him. Then another came with a bracelet. Then more. One by one, squirrels returned items, dragging them across the threshold like guilty toddlers. Grizzleflint smiled, just a bit. In time, the hoard was returned, not entirely, but enough. The rest he donated to a nearby goblin charity, which mostly turned it into disco armor, but that's another story. The squirrels stayed nearby, becoming odd neighbors and occasional yoga partners. Grizzleflint kept flying, even exploring new caves on weekends. And every morning, without fail, he stretched, he meditated, and he whispered his daily mantra. I am the fire in my belly. Also, don't trust squirrels. And thus, the laziest dragon in the world overcame his sloth, not with rage or vengeance, but with yoga, podcasts, and a mild sense of guilt. And a whole lot of squirrel drama. The end.